and basically the job is to give advice, guidance, direction, and cyber to 110 odd departments, agencies, right? So we have a pretty good taste of the different needs out there, from the high end to the low end. So part of what I want to talk about today is, well, what is this whole digital thing? And given that I work for Alex Benet, who says digital every second word out of his mouth, I think I have a pretty decent idea of what it means. I want to talk about what our role is as cyber practitioners is in this whole digital transformation thing, and how we may have to tweak a bit of our mindsets. And then maybe, since I am government, I figure I should talk a bit about some of our priorities and challenges in the government of Canada. So to get started, like, we'll just kind of talk quickly about, like, what does digital transformation even mean? I'm not going to spend the whole presentation on this, but I mean, it's not, I just want to be clear that it's not about putting paper forms online. That's digitization. That's a lot different than transforming your business model, like some of those companies that I'm sure you're well aware of do. They change more than their tech. It's their people and their process and technology that change, right? So they fundamentally flipped their business models, which is something that, I mean, I know the government is trying to do desperately, probably 20 years too late, but we're getting there, and I'm sure some of the private sectors are doing the same thing. But like I said, it's about the new approaches, and so what that means is that we have to take new approaches for cybersecurity as well, because there's a lot of things that come with the word digital, like agile and faster and seamless and all these other words you'll hear, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But from a government perspective, I'll tell you what that means for us. So if you ever heard my minister speak, he loves this freaking quote, but it's pretty good. So I'll say it again, that we can't be a blockbuster government when we're serving a Netflix citizenry. And what he means by that is how you deal with government. And think about how you deal with all the things in your private life. Like when you call your car, your Uber or whatever, and you book your hotel, everything comes to you, right? Except for government. And I realize I'm government, so I'm going to put that aside for a second and say it's a pain in the ass to deal with government sometimes. Think about, I just renewed my passport and I printed out the form and I fill it out by hand, and I had to walk to, well, take a freaking car to Gatineau or whatever the case may be. And I mean, I'm going to them. Like, that's the whole blockbuster model, right? And what we're trying to do, and we've been talking about it for a while, and I realize it's a lot of talk, but it's getting there, is trying to flip that around too, right? Make government turn into something like these things are. And the vision you'll hear, our people talk about is any service, any platform, any device, any partner. And what that means, like, in theory, not tomorrow, but are cool things like maybe you go to Expedia and you book a trip, and Expedia says, oh crap, your passport's about to expire while you're on the trip. I'm going to send a query off to immigration. They're going to tell you, you get a notification on your phone, you like, more come to you versus you come to them, that type of attitude. Imagine food recalls being displayed on your fridge, for example. Like, that type of stuff sounds super cool, don't get me wrong. I know we're not quite there yet, but that's the type of attitude we are trying to have when it comes to digitally transforming government. And ironically, in the late 90s, we put taxes online, or CRA opened up their interfaces to people like TurboTax, and how the Weather Network is open up its data the Environment Canada has opened up its data to the Weather Network. And we started this kind of government as a platform movement like 20 years ago. We just kind of plateaued. So a lot of the talk right now is to kind of restart some of that. Now, I think that sounds like, as a citizen, like, obviously super cool. That's how I want to deal with government. As a security guy, I'm realizing, that's just puts even more emphasis on the security of the underlying ecosystem. Obviously, it's all built on trust. And if you have kids, trust takes forever to build and 1 second to break. And in digital, it's going to be our backbone there. So we have to make sure that we're on top of this stuff. Now, like I said, with digital, you hear all these words like nimble and agile and things moving faster, and traditionally, and I'm not going to pick on people in the room, but generally, I'm going to say cybersecurity hasn't exactly been known for being the most agile of people, I would say. So part of this is changing the perception or the attitude around how we do cyber. And I've been using digital transformation as kind of the kickstart for this. Like, the IT's talking about, and services are talking about changing how they go. Like, why not take this opportunity to change a little bit of the perception around cybersecurity? Because traditionally, it's kind of reputation like that, right? So it's a little bit of a lot of risk aversion, no question. Historically, if there's been a checkbox for security, I'd say security people want to check it because it's, oh, cool, more secure the better, right? But what ends up happening when you check all your checkboxes all the time without any kind of context is that, you're kind of overdoing security. You're not making security usable. If it's not usable, I'm going to argue it's probably not good enough. And I'll use an example from well, no, I'm not allowed to name departments anymore. So there was a department that did an iPhone pilot. So the imagine an iPhone sounds pretty cool, right? Well, we still use Blackberries. I got one in my pocket right now. No disrespect to BlackBerry, but you had your time. iPhone came out. They want to pilot this in the department. So what? Good idea. Give it to security people. Guess what happens? So everything gets checked. Check, 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 check. By the time you're done with it, you have no camera, no app store, no anything, and basically you have $1,000 flip phone. Honestly, is what you have. So cool. Security, you did your job. Business gets it, and it's useless, right? So that's the kind of thing we have to change a bit. So part of that's the kind of stuff that gives us a bit of a bad reputation. And again, I'm generalizing. I apologize. I'm not trying to pick on people here, but this is a generalization. There's a famous quote that I love from the Cyber Center in the UK, and they said, a highly secure solution that no one uses is not secure at all. And so I fully agree with that. Like, I think that's one of the best things to think about when you keep this in mind, is that you build something so crazy secure that your users can't use it, well, they're just going to find a way around it. And that's what typically happens with us, right? And this is what I call uninformed security. So sure, you think, and you know what I always say, like, I think a false sense of security is probably worse than having no security. Because if you have no security, you're probably paranoid as hell. If you have a false sense of security, you kind of just have, your head in the sand thinking, yeah, everything's A-okay. Meanwhile, this is what's happening, right? So at the end of the day, like, users, for the most part, users just want to do their damn jobs. They get to work and they just want to, like anyone else, they want to do their job. And if you're seen as the barrier or the inefficiency between them getting their jobs done, they're going to find a way around you. And another example, like, I'll talk about myself and no departments. This guy I know at a department was trying to get to Google Docs one day at his department. Good guy, good looking dude, really smart. He was trying to collaborate with a partner in the UK, right? So Google Docs, unclassified stuff, but he goes to his computer and it's blocked. So, okay, that's cool. So what do you think he does? He's got to get his job done, and the security's not going to open it. And he happens to run security for the government of Canada. And he said, okay, fine. So I emailed the thing to he emailed this thing to his personal phone. Went uploaded to Google Docs, did it anyway, and so bypassed all the measures anyway. So what I'm trying to say is the behavior we encourage by making all these things unusable is we're encouraging people to find workarounds. I did it myself, and I'm gonna be honest. Like, I did it myself, and I told the guy afterwards, this is what I did and this is why I did it, because I had to get a job done. There was a document, we had to make changes, it was due at a certain time. Sorry, like, I make do with what you got, right? So, and I mean, I know that's a low risk example, but I'm using that because that's exactly what happens in our world with all our users. They're, for the most part, just trying to get their jobs done. And so you got to wonder, like, why people see security as a barrier, So I always, it's kind of an us versus them thing, and it kind of feels like they hate us and we kind of disrespect them a bit. And that's kind of what I want to try to advocate some change for. So the other thing that people kind of hate us for is that, like I said, us versus them, it's a lot of finger pointing, eh? Like, our industry, I find, it's a lot of, you got to do this, we're smarter than you are, look at the risks, and then fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and blah, 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 and scare. And there's some people do that, and it hasn't worked out so well for them, I guess. But I mean, I think, it's really funny. Security Awareness Month is last month, and the big theme is, security is everyone's responsibility. Yeah, everyone heard that? Big theme, security is everyone's responsibility. Then on the other hand, we hear, well, users are the weakest link. So on the one hand, you're saying, oh, it's everyone's problem, we're all working together. On the other hand, you're pointing your finger saying users are the weakest link. So it feels a little hypocritical that we just keep picking on our users, And so it's weird, because I'm not sure any other industry does that. Like, I think of things like phishing tests, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to despair. Like, I think phishing tests are a good thing for awareness and that, but just it's the way, it's our attitude when we conduct them. It's the, haha, gotcha, you clicked on the link, sucker, like, haha, and like, it's this constant wanting to demean them, I guess, is something that we have to do instead of kind of educating. And passwords is another thing. Like, of course, I've seen 100 times people putting passwords on sticky notes, and we're like, you're a loser. You shouldn't do passwords on sticky notes. You're stupid. But think of it from the other side, right? Think of it from our own policy says, in general, and most part, I'm sure you're all the same. You got to change your you got to have a different password for everything you use. Your password has to be, 8, 12 characters, something like that. Your password has to expire every 30, 60, 90 days. Has to have special characters, or sometimes can't contain special characters. You don't know. Like, so put yourself in the user shoes for a second. Like those rules are absolutely insane if you think about it just commonsensically. Like imagine going to the Rito Center out here. Every time you go into a different store, you got to do like a different like gesture. Like wink wink to get in the Club Monaco or whatever, and you do some kind of baseball arm gesture to get into a different one, and you got to change that gesture every month to go into a new store. Like it just doesn't make sense in any other world, right? So this is one of the again more reasons why people hate us, but it's our own doing. So I kind of say every time I hear user of the weakest link, I kind of turn it back on us and say maybe we are like maybe our job is to make them have a safer space to play in. And so link clicking, which listen, I get the dangers of it and all, and I know there's tech out there to fix it, but I think our job should be to focus on making link clicking safe. Like to me, we've done our job when I don't give a rat's what link they click on, when it can be isolated and sandboxed and not worry about, like if we're in a state where we're worried about people clicking links, maybe what does that say for the posture of our networks? You know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff I want to say. Like I'd like to be in an environment one day where all that stuff is safe for the user. And that's, I'm not an Apple fanboy, but that's what Apple does well, right? You can give an iPad to a 3-year-old and can figure out how to use it. And they don't have to worry about all the rules behind it. It's just usable. And that's what I want security to be. More usable, more pragmatic. So I look at other industries all the time, and I love the table saw example. I heard this once. I'm addicted to it. So table saw comes out, I don't know, early 1900s, whenever it comes out. It's a blade that spins on a flat surface, right? And people are using it to cut wood. It's freaking awesome, and I'm sure people are cutting their thumbs off left and right. And I'm sure so the industry probably goes back. Thinking, oh man, we got a big user problem. People are cutting their thumbs off, and I can just imagine, like if a cyber guy was there, they'd be like, user's the weakest link. You better training and awareness. We better we better put fake blades and catch him, catching his thumb off or something. And hopefully someone smarter says, maybe we got to make it more user friendly, or maybe we got to put a guard on it, for example. So that's what they do, right? They evolved to a guard, and I'm sure the finger cutting got reduced a little bit, and now there's freaking table saws that detect the moisture on your finger and stop spinning as soon as your finger touches it. And so, and I know it's not the same analogy, but as cyber, but the principles are the same. Like they kept iterating until they got to a place where they made it as safe as they humanly could for their users. And I use the analogy because safety and security are the closest things I can find, but there's a whole bunch of these and everything. Like I just find that our community seems to be a bit naive in thinking that we can fix everything with user training and awareness, and that we will fix the users, and they're the weakest, but they're the weakest link everywhere, quite frankly. And I don't want to say the weakest link, because we're human. Humans make mistakes. Cars are adapting to us being human. Cars are getting from the 1900s to now. Look at the evolution of cars. So I want us to get to that same way and making it safer and safer and safer for users to be users, or humans to be humans. So it starts with just a bit more of an enablement attitude. I know you've heard this for years. Security's got to be an enabler. I'm not sure we put it into practice as best as we could. So, but like I said, with this whole digital transformation change and stuff, this is like the chance to rebrand, reinvent ourselves. And I think that like one of the things I started, like when I met with Alex when he first started, I swear to God, the first thing he said to me is like, I hate security people. All they ever tell me is no. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome working for this guy. It's gonna be a treat, and that's another story. But truthfully, I told him, it's not my job to say no. I'm never gonna say no. I will say yes, but, and yes, and yes, here's how, and yes, and here's some tips, and or whatever. But it's not our job to say no. Our job is to just identify risk and say, here are some good risks to take and bad risks to take. Like I think of I just got my car done at a mechanic, and think of your favorite mechanic. Is it the mechanic that comes back with a giant checklist and say you got to do all these things before you leave here, or is the mechanic that goes, hey, you know what? You must do this stuff because it's your brakes or whatever. You can get away with this, and maybe come back next year for this stuff. And I'm pretty sure you're going to pick that second one. And and that's with our lives on the line, by the way. Our lives, our wives' lives, our spouses' lives, our kids' lives are on the line with our car, and we're making risk-based decisions with that. Tell me we can't do the same thing with cybersecurity, right? So that's kind of the attitude I think we need to have, is be the helpful mechanic. And the other challenge with us is, and believe me, I know this well in government, is that one size doesn't fit all. And like, look, like some of our departments go from the Department of National Defense to like Polar Knowledge Canada. And no disrespect to Polar Knowledge Canada, who are All four of them are probably great people, but they have a vastly different security posture than the Department of National Defense, right? So what I mean is that you cannot have this checklist based approach. I certainly didn't get into security to walk around with a checklist and make sure people follow it. I wanted to have intelligent risk management conversations and actually have like, debates and talk about business context and figure out what's the right size, right? Like you got a safe at home. It's this big. I'm not putting, and I love my McDonald's coupons. The 2 can dine is awesome, but I'm not putting my McDonald's coupons in my safe. I have a limited amount of space that's reserved for my valuables, my heirlooms, my whatever, right? Most of my wife's jewelry, but let's be honest. But at the end of the day, you have a limited amount of space. You got to prioritize, and that's what we have to do better with security. We have a tendency, especially in government, overclassify, which means overprotect, which means overspend, and a lot of other things. So we just have to get better at the risk management part. Because at the end of the day, like there's no such thing as perfect. Like I don't care how hard you try, you're not going to prevent everything. And you've all seen the spectrum, the prevent, detect, respond, recover. There's a reason it's not just called prevent, because there is more to it. And so sometimes I feel, and that Google Docs example is one of them, we spend so much time trying to prevent. And I think that's probably to our detriment. Think of the Google Docs example again that I gave earlier. And that like you have, so here I am bypassing my own network because I need to get my job done. I would think of it from the other side. So all that traffic, even if it was malicious, you're not seeing. So I'd rather that at least be done on my network, and maybe I can't prevent it, but at least I could detect when maybe I'm uploading 300 gigs on a Sunday night at 3 in the morning. So you shift your posture from trying to block everything to trying to figure out, some stuff is detectable or not. And that's to me one of them where I'd rather that, I don't know about you, I'd rather that activity happen on a network that I'm monitoring versus knowing in my head that it's happening on the side via phones. I mean, we all have these little things in our pockets that can do a lot more than our networks are allowing us to do. So anyway, I mean, like I said, it's about taking risk. You all took a risk getting here today. I'm sure you crossed the street somewhere to get here or something. You probably looked both ways. Maybe not this cat right here with the lemonade, I don't know, but he looks a little dangerous, I'm not sure. But we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, like you wait for the light to go. You cross the street when you can. You look both ways. Maybe take your headphones out. Cyber's got to be the same way. You got to make sure that you're not overdoing it at the end of the day. Like so. I just find like sometimes we don't have those conversations as best we can, and I think that's what we just have to admit. Like we're going to get breached. Let's just be honest. Not that I'm saying just submit and accept you're going to get breached. Do what you got to do, and then plan and react accordingly. So I mean about the whole spectrum again. So part of this, I mean, the how. I mean, I realize I just spent the last like 20 minutes crapping all over security people, and that's not my intention. Is more just to give you the user side of things, and the idea is to engage early. I mean, you hear this all the time. I'm not the first guy to say engage early, have conversations early, whatever. This is all, 20 years ago. What I'm saying is different, though, is that you wonder why they don't engage us early. Like it's some of the attitudes that I said earlier is, I think, part of the problem. So yes, I know historically what business lines do. They don't engage you at all. They come to you at the very end. They ask you for a sign off. They got a gun to your head. And then, of course, like my first reaction would be like, whoa, like, have you done all this? And it's a natural human reaction. And obviously, understandably, if you were engaged from the get-go, that would be a whole different story. And I know that's been our mantra for years. But like I said, with the attitudes that I mentioned previously, you can kind of sympathize with the business lines when they don't want to engage you early, when all they see you as a red tape exercise, and that, or a barrier. And that's kind of the mentality we're trying to change. I want them to see us as value add. And so, I've been blabbing a lot about user, making it business focused or user centric or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, I've been talking about this in government for about a year and a half, and I swear to God, like I am now getting calls, almost too early to be honest with you. I don't want to say that outside these walls, but truthfully, people are calling me now about systems that are like a year and a half away. And I'm like, this would never happen a couple of years ago. And I think a lot of it is just the change in attitude about, okay, no, we're here to help. Like, just tell me what you want to do. And like I said, a year and a half early, well, I have a lot of other things to do, to be honest. But I'm happy to have those conversations because I would much rather the year and a half early than the day before it's going live, right? I'm sure everyone else is in the same boat. So like I said, I think it's just about sending the user-centric message. A bit of pragmatism goes a long way. Now's, like I said, there's no better time than now to do it. So that's kind of my soapbox part. I will talk a bit about what we're doing in the government of Canada now. to help enable this kind of this attitude. So cloud is one of our top priorities, I would say, if not the top priority to enable digital transformation for a lot of the reasons I just said earlier. I mean, quite frankly, let's be honest, we can't spend the amount of money on security that the cloud providers can, the hyperscalers specifically. I mean, you can't. You can argue with that if you want, but I mean, you're not going to get any better than they're doing. So, and the other thing is, having the power of industry certifications and stuff behind you. You think about some of our processes of accreditation before going live, and you look at the cloud providers, and they're checking half the boxes out of the box. I mean, that's half the stuff that you don't have to do anymore on-prem. And that, to me, in a world where we're scarce with talent already, is kind of a no-brainer. So in the government of Canada, now I'll be honest, our cloud adoption is a little bit slow, but I mean, we put all the tools out there to do it. We have a cloud-first policy now where I'm not saying every single damn thing goes in the cloud. Like, national secrets are going to stay on-prem, I'll tell you that much. But for let's say 80% of our stuff, there's no reason it cannot be hosted in the cloud, at least in Canada, for God's sakes, right? So it's a cloud-first policy. You have to look cloud-first. You better damn well rationalize why you can't go in there, and there are very few exceptions to that right now. We have a baseline security control profile that we put out there and mapped against industry standards. So you have a FedRAMP and you have a SOC 2. Well, you just checked a few of those boxes, and now the job of the security practitioner on-prem is now down to here. And let's be honest, we don't have that on-prem today, right? You have your little audits and stuff that we do. We don't have the assurances of a third party, a Deloitte or Ernst & Young coming in and auditing us every once in a while. That is one of the luxuries that the cloud providers have as well. And I'm not saying that the cloud's the be all end all. I'm just saying that it's one of the tools in our toolbox that we have to start using if we're going to get a bit smarter about this. So we have a couple other things that I'm happy to talk to you about. We have a lot of documentation online now. I'll be honest, like, our biggest problem is procurement, and sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do in government, but we have unclassified cloud that we can buy now, and knock on wood, without giving you any dates, because we're not good at holding dates, but by the end of the fiscal year, we should have some mechanism to buy protected B cloud, which to me is going to be the big game changer for government. I mean, that's where your CRAs and your ESTCs are going to be able to kind of put some of that sensitive stuff out there and protect it. I would argue a little bit better than it might be protected today. Some of the cloud stuff, I call them server huggers. Sometimes the server huggers are a bit kind of worried about the cloud, and I'm thinking, like, if I have to hear the word Patriot Act or something one more time, I'm going to lose my mind, because there are risks. Don't get me wrong, there are risks in the cloud, and there are ways to mitigate some of the risks, but you telling me there's no risk in on-prem when a server running Windows 2003 is sitting in a closet somewhere? Like, I mean, to me, this is about relative risk, and I'm about making sure our relative risk is reduced as we move forward. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than today? I'm pretty sure it is in most cases. Next one we are working on a lot of is digital identity. So, all those cool dreams of Expedia and fridge stuff that I talked about earlier kind of hinges on a digital identity for that to work. The whole passport example hinges on that whole thing. So we are actively working with that. Like, you might hear a lot to talk about Estonia. Estonia is super cool. You go there, you have a card, lets you do everything with. Also a little bit of a different culture. I'm not sure we're going to, no, I'm not sure. I guarantee you we're not going to issue every Canadian a national identity card and track them with a single number. Pretty sure our culture doesn't really love that too much. But I'll tell you what our vision is it's going to be more of a federated approach where you have identities rooted, like, so here, the way it works in Canada is you're either born here, you move here. If you're born here, that information lives with your province. If you move here, that lives with immigration. Those could be your trusted sources. You have your choice of trusted digital identity you can use to consume your government services. So no single source of failure, no single source of compromise. Your choice. You don't want to use it, don't use it. Call on phone if you want to. So that's kind of what we're working on. We actually have some pilots underway right now with provinces. One of them is, and a kind of a spoiler because it's going to be announced later this month, but keep it between us. The province of Alberta has a digital ID. So if you're an Albertan, maybe, or a friend there, try this. You digital ID from province of Alberta that you get vetted in person. It's accredited, it's verified. We're going to try accepting that to consume government services. So in theory, Albertan can just log into ESTC and do their student loans, or then get to taxes, or whatever the case may be. And so that works, and it should. You can imagine that kind of scaling out. And you think about government. Like, I always use my mom as an example. Like, she doesn't know the difference between getting your driver's license done, or taxes, or social benefits, or whatever, it's all government to her. It's only us that draws this stupid line between federal, provincial, and CRA, STC, and whatever, right? I mean, citizens don't care. It's government stuff. So why can't you have a government ID that lets you do your government stuff? And that's kind of what we're trying to work towards. Why that works, the Alberta example, why that can work and how that can scale is because we have something called the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework. And if you haven't heard about it, it's just, in the simplest terms, it's a set of rules or criteria that we all kind of agree to abide by. That, this level of effort is needed to get to a trusted digital identity, whether it's an in-person check or some of the other check boxes you got to meet. So if Alberta's met that, and we are good with that process, and there's of course an accreditation process to go through, why on earth can't we accept that as a trusted ID, and why can't that be used in Ontario or BC or vice versa? So that's kind of the vision we're going. You'll see some more work on that. It's definitely a hot topic these days, but more to come, I guess. Stay tuned for that pilot announcement. You didn't hear it from me. Pragmatic security is something I kind of ramble on about a lot. I kind of did earlier, to be honest. But here's how we're kind of trying to do it. So that Google Docs example is supposed to be no more, because we put out direction to say, block stuff that's illegal, block the stuff that's absolutely inappropriate for work, and open everything else up. And I'll be honest, it hasn't been super well received, but it's baby steps. Some departments have loved it and done well with it. Others are still working on it. And I get that there are different risk postures, and I get that some can't open that stuff because of a higher risk of data loss, and that's fine. So you put in some DLP or whatever you have to, whatever you have to do to make do. But I'm just showing that the attitude for security is starting to change, is where it's open these sites and rationalize the blocking instead of blocking the sites and rationalizing the opening. So it just starts, it's a different kind of conversation to have. Password guidance. I mentioned the archaic password rules that we all follow. Even the guy from NIST, the guy who wrote the rules in the first place, says password complexity is one of his biggest regrets. He thinks it's the dumbest thing. The behavior we've encouraged is probably something akin to, oh crap, I got to change every month? Well, I'm just going to do my capital letter, a bunch of lowercase letters, an exclamation mark, and I'm going to change a special character every 60 days. And so if that's the culture you've just put into play, like what better off are you? Like that's not really user friendly. And in fact, I think we're just creating barriers for the sake of creating them. So the new guidance that we just published, and we are going to maybe make a new standard, we'll see how this is received, is a lot more simple. It's a certain character length. I want to say 12. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'm looking at that guy. 12, yeah, 12. 12-ish characters, all lowercase, no complexity, no expiry. And so the theory with that is that, okay, 12, the math works. If you go to brute force it, you do the math, it's pretty strong. The no expiry is because if there's no indication of a breach or no breach, then why change it? Like, why encourage this repetitive, add a different special character, increment a number at the end of your password behavior, and then notify upon breaches and change then? So that's kind of the new, again, user-friendly stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that, I'll be honest, it buys us street cred with the users. You start making their lives a little bit easier, but not compromising security. Like you're telling me, like I told you about the brute force stuff, if the math's the same for 12 lowercase characters as it is for 8 with complexity, tell me why that's not a better thing to do, especially if we can reduce frequency of change. And don't get me wrong, I mean, password managers and all these other things are good ideas as well, but these types of things to enable our users, rather than sitting back and giving them some dumb policy that says these rules that just, like I said, when you look at it from a common sense perspective, are very tough to follow, I think changes a bit of our street cred as well. I'm mentioning HTTPS everywhere here because a bit of a plug for an initiative that we launched, in that we want all our sites to be HTTPS public facing, no matter what, sensitive or not. But I want to point out to the way we did it. And it's even when we give direction to departments now, it's the first time we've done this, instead of just being typical Treasury Board and writing a nice little directive and putting our feet up, which is not what we do, but that's what people think we do. We wrote the direction and then we made it user friendly. We actually published a dashboard for them that automatically scans all domains every night and publishes the results and says, here's how many of your departments are HTTPS compliant. So we're even making security easy for the implementers. So all of this is about like making stuff easy, making it user friendly so they can focus on the stuff they have to focus on. For the record, I do want to publish that dashboard publicly, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with that, but I will assure you it's going to be published publicly, because I think it's kind of stupid to hide this stuff when you can just go to Google Chrome today and see the words not secure when you go to a certain site. So I'm going to tell you how many percentages our sites are HTTPS, and I'll let the dashboard show our progress. That's kind of like, honestly, being open about this stuff too is part of what we're trying to get at as well. I'm not going to tell you all our vulnerabilities, but some of the ones that are obvious, I have no problem reporting on what we're doing and telling you the progress, because we should be held accountable. This is the services we're delivering to you, and I'm a consumer of those services too, so I kind of want to know what's going on myself. So we talked about baking security in earlier to the life cycle, and like I said, we talked about it for years. In government, what we try to do, sometimes you got to force it. You got to force the behavior. We've actually mandated all these mandatory security checks at this new enterprise architecture review board that we do. So any kind of project that does any kind of public-facing thing, or has a certain dollar value, or a few criteria that's met, has to come to this board for approval before it goes forward. And I guess who's sitting at that board. So I get to have security insight from concept before these things get out there. And like I said, sometimes you have to bake it in yourself. It'd be nice to get all the buy-in, but sometimes you got to force it. And this time we forced it, and it's been working well so far. I mean, one of the challenges we have in government is we don't talk much with each other, right? I mean, we have 44 case management systems. We have like 50 plus grants and contribution systems. I'm no, grants and contributions expert, but I don't know how many ways there are to give a grant or contribution. Like there two maybe? Like I don't think it's 50. And I give that example because now you have 50 some odd systems that are individually being accredited, individually, I guarantee, have different security postures, and I guarantee have gone through different levels of scrutiny. And so I would much rather that be one system. Part of this board's idea is to not only just build in security up front, but just rationalize their IT infrastructure. So in the future that someone tries to build a new one, well, hang on, we already have one. It's been accredited already. It's got the checks. It's going to make our lives a hell of a lot easier. So again, promoting standardization. What else am I talking about? Oh, DevSecOps. I think honestly, this whole DevOps thing is our prime chance to rebrand and to really help security here. Like you have people that are iterating and developing code on a nightly or many times a day basis, quite frankly. And for me, I am pushing as much security and automation in that process as possible. Like think about all the stuff we used to complain about, how, there's a bug in your system, and in the waterfall way, you'd wait 6 months or a year for the next code release to come out before the bug can be fixed. Here you have a chance to fix these damn things nightly. This is an opportunity for us to build. So the more automation you build in that process, the faster, and I think the bugs are getting fixed than historically, which I know is a bit more waterfall-y, but and maybe you felt like you had more time to assess, but now you can build this stuff kind of back in. I think this is one of the biggest shifts our community can make is be best friends with your developers and get your tools and get automation built into that process as early as possible. So that's something we're really keen on focusing in on. And of course I got to mention incident response because I just said earlier you're going to get breached, so you may as well figure out what you're going to do when you are. So we have a plan. We have exercised it. I'll be honest, we don't exercise it enough. I'm pretty sure no one exercises it enough. We do fire drills in our building like once every quarter. I'm pretty sure that's because it's by law. But I mean, I'll be honest, I've never been in a building with a fire yet, knock on wood, but I've seen 100 cyber incidents, and we don't practice that as much. So I'd rather get into a habit of practicing response on that kind of thing. We just did an exercise last month. We got a whole bunch of senior ADMs in a room, and it was awesome. It was 3 hours, and we actually simulated stuff that they just are not used to seeing. And I wish we did this. We did this once every 2 years now. I wish we did it once every quarter. And I know it's hard to get the time sometimes, but this kind of practice is something that we have to get used to doing. Now some of the challenges, it's not, like I said, it's not all there. This is just stuff we're focused on, but we're like everyone else. I'm sure some of these challenges are going to resonate with you as well. I mean, legacy debt is something we have a ton of. I mean, I mentioned when it was 2003 earlier, I wish I was joking. It's 2018 and we're still dealing with, I won't tell you where, but some of the servers are embarrassing. So I mean, that is huge exposure for us right now. And that's why, quite frankly, this push to cloud is so important to me. In cloud, I guarantee you're not worried about Windows 2003 anymore. You're worried about other stuff, but at least you get some of this crazy stuff that I think we're worried about out of the way, So worry about a different part of the stack. You got a bunch of smart people working here in this room or working for you or whatever. I don't want them working on upgrading operating systems all the time. I want them working on smart stuff. So I'll acknowledge we have a ton of work to do here. I'm really hoping we can speed up the game for with cloud. The rapidly changing tech, I mean, that's nothing new, except it just feels like it's faster before. Honestly, I found it was hard enough to keep up with cyber before. And now you got like blockchain and AI and IoT and like fridges talking, and it's just ridiculous. Like it's hard enough before. It's going to be harder in the future. It's not getting any easier. I'll be honest with you. Which is why all the stuff I said earlier about automation and standardization and making our jobs a bit more efficient has to come true, because we'll never be able to keep up with this stuff. And I'll tell you right now, like we're already, I know AI is a nice little, like we're not near Skynet yet, but if you're not having AI conversations with your AI people right now, you're probably, if you're too late. If you talk about being engaged early, you got to be cutting edge on this stuff and engage on this stuff now if you want to be, if you don't want to be caught behind, like especially in the world where business lines are trying to be, digital transformation, the buzzword, and trying to be agile and all this stuff, they're gonna be implementing this stuff a lot faster than historically they have been. So it behooves us to get involved in those conversations a lot earlier. And this is an obvious one, and the talent shortage. I mean, I don't know what to say other than we're all in this boat. I heard numbers like 2 to 3 million short by 2021. The numbers seem to shift every year, but hey, we're on the same boat. We fight for the same people. So what that tells me, again, more to being more efficient, but also sharing info with one another across your state. Like, honestly, cyber has no boundaries. Only we're the ones that draw the boundaries between federal, provincial, private, international. There is no boundary for cyber, so we may as well leverage as much as we humanly can, and find parallels, draw them in. And that's why I said about working in the open. We're posting all our stuff for cloud, for passwords, for HTTPS public. Like, go. You want to do it in your organizations, use it. I want to, that's the only way we're going to do this. Like, I don't think if all of us try to tackle the same things individually, I'm not sure that's going to be a recipe for success. So, like I said, same problems, same challenges. This is kind of we're all in this together part of the presentation. But like I said, like ultimately, to conclude, really, the main topic here is that it's about digital transformation now gives us the opportunity to change a bit. And I'm saying go back to your communities, talk to them about some of the pragmatism that you can offer, talked about being a bit more practical, try to make a bit more of those risk-based decisions, balance a bit more. I mean, this is the only way we're going to get anywhere with them. And I think if any of this is going to work in the future, this digital thing is going to work, you have to be involved in it. And this us versus them kind of mentality has to be the first thing that goes. So I think that's it. I'll stop rambling now. Thanks for listening.